Greetings and salutations, Dave Duford here. Today's training, we're going to be talking about my beginnings in the insurance business back in 2011, where I started on a part-time basis and how I got success fairly early on as a new insurance agent. My take-home income the first month was approximately a little more than $3,500. And what I'm going to be talking about in this video is how I did that on a part-time basis, what products I sold, why I sold those particular products, because not all products are the same to facilitate this kind of income. The sales system I used, how I prospected, found prospects, meaning people to sell to, and then talking about some things that I wish I did differently now that we're 14 years ahead and hopefully much wiser. So my goal for you in listening to my story is to hopefully communicate some ideas and some concepts to you. So if you're new, and especially if you're thinking about starting part-time, but this absolutely applies if you want to do full-time, maybe you can take away some things that I did right and then like avoid the problems and issues that I caused, getting started on a part-time basis. Okay. So it all started back in 2011. I was 26 at the time, and I had heard about this product called Final Expense. I was really intrigued by it. I had a personal training gym that was really just on its way, circling the bowl, basically. If you guys are old enough to remember, that was the Great Recession times. And a lot of businesses were suffering, and mine was one of them. And I knew I had to make a pivot, but I didn't want to make too big of a risk jumping away from this thing, which was paying some of the bills. But I knew long-term it was failed. But I needed to make a pivot into something else. And I came across the insurance business and I liked it, but I didn't know if I wanted to go all in. And so essentially what I did, and we'll get into more details here, I started part-time while I still ran my personal training business to give this business a chance and to see if it could actually sustain itself for a longer period of time. And immediately, first month, I made $3,500, thereabouts. The second month, I made more, and then had some good months, had some bad months, intermixed in that first 6 months, but enough good that I was confident at that point that I wanted to go full time and go all into the insurance business and then close down eventually, which I did, the personal training business at about the 6 month mark. So part-time for me allowed me to test this business out without taking too big of a risk. You see, at that point in my career, in my life, I had a lot of debt. I had a wife, a son, bills. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And so my concern was going all in to the point of not assessing the risk carefully, because I might make things worse if I leave a sure thing or a more sure thing, some income from my existing business. Funny enough, which we'll kind of reference too, I actually failed out at the 12-month mark and went back in the Final Expense after starting a job elsewhere, part-time for a second time, and actually gave it 12 months on the second time before I went full-time. Which was kind of a reflection of the mistakes I made the first time. So we'll kind of reference that too as we go. So I've actually been part-time twice and have had success in being part-time. So twice. So I kind of know what I'm talking about, I guess, to an extent. So anyways, let's get into some specifics about how this worked and why I chose certain products, because I think there's a right way to do this on a part-time basis where you'll get success or have a higher odds chance of success. And there are some products, though, and some ways of doing this where it lowers your chances of success. So these are things that, again, I did. You don't have to duplicate what I did, but I think made for a better outcome. And that's the thing in this business. You want to set yourself up as much as you can, do your due diligence to be set up for success. Okay. So when I first started, I sold, as we still do now, Final Expense life insurance. And for those uninitiated, Final Expense life insurance is burial insurance. You sell it generally to people 50 and older who are lower income that need a policy to pay for the burial expense, funeral expense, and or cremation expense. As Benjamin Franklin said, there are two things in life that are certain: death and taxes. And the cost associated with death is also certain. So I like final expense for a number of reasons. And I think it's not the only product out there, but it's a really good product to consider to start, especially if you need money sooner than later. So here's a couple of reasons why I like final expense in a part-time situation. Number one, final expense life insurance is fast money as opposed to slow money. So here's what I mean. Final expense pays a good first year upfront commission. And it only takes with like our company, just a week or two, generally speaking, before you actually get paid on your sales. So it's not like a situation where you may, like, say, sell annuities. Annuities are a great product. You make way more money per sale on annuity, but the challenge with annuities is turning the sales around fast. It may take 3 or 6 months of building a pipeline before you make a sale on that particular prospect. And for people who need to make part-time money, they typically need to do it and make it fast, not slow. So final expense did it for me because the speed of making the money was very fast. And also the first year commission is high. Generally speaking, if you are like in our free lead program and you're writing a good bit of a business, the average commission is going to pay 300-ish, give or take, depending on there's variables, depending on how old or how much premium, of course, per sale. If you buy your own leads and you're running kind of more of an independent route, you may make more like $400 or $500 per sale, but you're buying your own leads. There's other things with that. So there's good upfront money that's built into the final expense business. This is not the case with a lot of other products that are lesser on the first year commission, but higher, or I should say better, on the renewal business. So for example, Medicare, health insurance, ACA, these are great long-term income opportunities, but they're tougher to cash flow and cover your cost and make money on the front end because the way the products are designed, they're designed to pay out more the longer you keep the clients on the books, having a policy with you. So you're rewarded more over time than on the upfront transaction. Why is that a problem? I mean, it may or may not be a problem, but one of the problems, the reality is that if you have a lower first year commission, it's going to take more sales if your goal is to make money fast, to overcome that lower upfront requirement. And if you're in a position, especially if you're buying leads, well, then you got to factor out the costs of running your operations, which lowers the commission that much more. So my point is, generally speaking, Medicare and ACA are great because of the renewal income opportunity, but they tend to be poor options for new agents to start with because financially, in order to do it right, you have to have money up front, and you tend to have a much smaller net income than you would with, say, a final expense or in general a life insurance product that you would be selling. Does that make sense, everybody? We don't really train this anymore, but we used to recruit agents in the final expense and get them thinking about Medicare later on, which as a strategy absolutely still works, because it's easier to incorporate those products to build renewal money after you've established yourself, you're making money consistently, you've been able to save some money up so that when you start incorporating that, it's not going to be as much of a financial hit. Okay. And check to see if there's any questions. Perfect. And remember, if you're watching this live, feel free to throw your questions out. Be happy to address them. So that's why I sold final expense as a new agent part-time, because I needed money today. Like I needed money yesterday in the situation that I was in. And I just couldn't afford, even though I like the idea of renewal income, waiting years to build up a significant renewal stream. So for me, final expense was the perfect product because it helped me generate an income that I very desperately needed because my current business just didn't support it. All right. Okay. Second, let's talk about the sales system that I used, because and a lot of this I'm sharing with you because you may be new to the business and you're thinking about which route to go. And you need to understand as much as possible how the sales systems work, how the entirety of the program works, so you can find out for yourself if it's right for you or if it's not. Again, final expense may not be the route for you. Something else might be. And the more you know and the more informed you are, the better decisions you can make. So this is crazy. And it's funny. This was the norm, the way that we sold about what I'm about to describe, or how we sold was the norm, but it's completely changed. So we went the old fashioned way, selling final expense door to door. Now, we just didn't cold call and approach people randomly. I never wanted to cold call in this business. What I wanted to do is work with people who were already interested. Okay. They've filled out a lead form. A lead is somebody who expresses by filling out a form online, in this case, back in 2011, on a direct mail card and sent it back. These are people that express some marginal level of interest. It doesn't mean they're going to buy, but their chances of them buying are higher than if you approach some random person down the street. And so for me, when I started in the business part-time, it was really important because of my smaller amount of time that I was spending it with people who were actually interested in what I was talking about. I just didn't have 50 or 60 hours a week to work low quality leads or cold call. So having qualified people to talk to that were interested was a required starting point for me. And so our method of approaching these prospects was simply going door to door or pre-setting an appointment with the client and then seeing them in person. And it sounds scary because a lot of people don't like the idea of going door to door. It actually works pretty well. It still works very well. We would just knock on the door, show them the information, go through our script, ask to come in, and then go through the presentation. And especially in final expense, the door-to-door method works great because a lot of people we see are older. They don't get to see a lot of people. They like having guests in. You just got to be careful of not wasting your time on people just want to talk. Like I was telling my wife the other day, I had a client and she literally talked to me for an hour and a half, wouldn't let me have a word in edgewise. And at that point, I'm pretty patient. I got up, started walking out. She followed me. I went back to my car, closed the door on her, got the windshield up or the window up halfway, and she was still talking to me through the window, not letting me leave. That's an extreme case, but that's kind of what happened. So that's how we prospected, and it works really well. Now, fast forward to today, since 2020, and what we've seen in our business is that nobody really wants to sell face-to-face, not because it's inherently bad, but the business now can be transacted successfully from the comfort of your own home, selling over the phone. So now we don't recruit face-to-face agents because there just isn't enough interest in it. It doesn't exist. Everybody likes the idea of working remotely from home and being able to transact business without having to drive an hour in one direction or the risks that come with people and approaching them at home, which I totally understand and respect. Never really had many problems. Sometimes I did. But the way it works now with a lot of products is you don't have to leave your house. It's a huge advantage because you now have more time to do presentations, to talk to prospects, to put in the activity and do away with the drive time, the window shield time that would take away from the opportunity. So that's kind of how you would look at it today. I would say with the vast majority of insurance products, whether it's final expense or something else, if you're looking to do this part-time, the vast majority of the opportunities are focused on remote sales. As the market, you guys, that's what you want. And so we've developed ourselves to facilitate it. Again, not to mention there's some good face-to-face organizations out there for sure, but it's not as in demand. Let's put it that way. Third, again, really important here, because if you're new, I can't stress enough what I'm about to say. You can have the greatest training system, like some great agent or trainer that will tell you everything you need to be successful. You can have the best carriers. You can have the best product, a perfect product. You can have everything in your favor. But if you don't have the best and highest quality leads, prospects that are interested, even with everything in your favor, you're dead in the water. Your business, your ability to be successful is over before it starts. So it's imperative as a newer agent getting started, you think about how you are going, what system is going to allow you to get in front of interested candidates, okay? Interested people that actually want to buy what you're selling. Because without that system, it's all for naught. In fact, I would even wager having that system, regardless of what product you're selling, is more important than the product you're selling and even the carriers you're selling with, because you have to have some way to get in front of people to sell them. And without it, it's a frustrating enterprise. So what I did, like I said, when I first started part-time, is I did direct mail leads. Now, those don't work for the most part, they can work. The problem with those leads now is they've doubled, if not tripled in price, because the response rates have dropped. And they're very difficult to close over the phone. And some of them don't even include phone numbers. So there's a high cost associated with using that style of lead that worked incredibly well face-to-face in 2011, but doesn't now. So what we do now and recommend to agents is to find a source for high quality digital leads. Generally speaking, if you're doing final expense, generated on Facebook, although, if you're selling mortgage protection, IULs, there are companies doing this, recruiting agents and working leads that originate off of Facebook. We like Facebook because there's a ton of people on it, especially in final expense. Facebook's full of older people now, the younger people on Snapchat and TikTok. So our prospects, our market is there, and you can deliver your message affordably and fairly quickly too. So it facilitates a way to get started. And what's cool is that whether if you're part-time, like in our agency, or even if you're just buying your own leads, you can scale your lead flow so you don't have to buy. You can buy accordingly to the amount of time that you can put in. Now, there's some methodologies I don't like when it comes to prospecting. And I wanted to mention this here too, because it's really important to get the lead piece right. I can't stress that enough. A lot of agents come into this business thinking leads aren't as important as they should think they are. And they find out after wasting $5,000, $10,000, not kidding you, that they were bad. And now they have a chip on their shoulder and a experience that is, they're very cynical about the business. They think it's a racket, and they're not necessarily wrong for the organization part. So getting leads right is important. And so what leads are I don't like, that I wouldn't recommend? So again, for final expense, I wouldn't do cold calling. I wouldn't do referral marketing. You see, in the world of what you're about to partake in the insurance business, the most important thing to securing your success is up here. It's your mental state. Because most of you, if you're thinking about joining this business, are probably going to have a large percentage, if not all of your earnings based off of purely commission. So that means you wake up unemployed every single morning. And some days you'll make a lot of money. Some days, some weeks even, you won't make any or very little. And it has this effect mentally on you. And so making sure that your brain and your mind and your mental state is solid as much as possible all the time is imperative to your long-term success. Now, why does this matter? Because cold calling, meaning just showing up in the door randomly, random people, or calling random people who didn't express interest, it is a grind. It is the ultimate grind. It is really difficult to sustain your commitment and your emotional control because you'll constantly be chewed out, yelled at, screamed at, rejected. And it is just like, unless you are just thick-skinned and an incredible, person in the control of your mindset, most people never make it past the first couple of days, to be honest with you. So why even entertain those strategies with such a large failure rate, knowing that it's very frustrating? That's why I didn't do cold calling. That's why I didn't do any of that kind of stuff, because I know myself. I was like, oh man, if I did that stuff, I wouldn't be in the business. Like, I want to talk to people who are interested. That's why we do leads. The other thing I would be very wary of, it's not that it doesn't work, but it's something that tends to not scale well. And scale, we'll talk about here. What is scale? Scale is, can you is the lead source you're doing, can you do more of it? And is it sustainable? So is it scalable and sustainable? It's really important because some lead sources are good, but they don't scale well and they're not sustainable. And I think one of those sources for most people is referral-based marketing. You get this a lot in the insurance business. And the reason I don't like referral-based marketing, I mean like friends and family, like selling them a policy, is that most of the time, most people cannot get enough activity from their friends and family and then building on referrals from them to sustainably create enough business to really get to to that higher six-figure income goal that they have in mind. Referral marketing tends to burn out. It tends to reach a conclusion for most agents within the first 3 to 6 months, given that the agent actually pursues the system. And it is just not something that has longevity attached to it. This is why I prefer, an agent do something like our free lead program, or if an agent wants to buy their own leads and do their own thing, those systems are better because the lead systems themselves have been around for decades. And for social media, at least 10 years, agents have been doing social media leads. So they've got longevity. And you have the capability to scale, meaning if you wanted to do more than 50 leads a week, or if you wanted to put more time in, there is the ability based off of the platform on Facebook to scale to work as much as you want to get to the point and work your way into the income that you want. So it's important to keep that in mind because with a lot of other systems, they're either just a grind on your soul or they just don't sustain well. And not to mention, like me personally, I'm just speaking for myself. I didn't want to sell friends and family. I don't want to have that relationship. My dad told me, he was a businessman. He said, never do business with friends and family, and which I mostly have done and followed and agreed with. I certainly didn't want to start that way because I didn't have the knowledge base and I didn't want to accidentally mess something up for my friends and family and their insurance. So, and plus people will come to you and your family as they see you're successful just by default as you communicate your success. So, but that's me. Some people, they don't mind it and it actually can work fine. But the ultimate longer medium-term issue is scalability. And you need to take that seriously, or if you just rely on this one thing that you have harder control over, it starts to flatline and you don't get the kind of success that you want long term. Okay. So I'm going to check if there's any questions. We'll keep going. Hopefully this is intriguing, getting some value out of this. Cool. Yeah, JD, I'll get to that in a second. Good question. So final thing, what would I do differently now? I want to talk about that. What would I do differently knowing what I know now? So I've worked with at least 5,000 agents since 2013 in my agency. I've seen agents who have been incredibly successful, and I've seen agents who have been incredibly unsuccessful. I've seen everything in between. And so knowing what I've experienced plus seeing others, I can convey to you some things that I think are really important because your first 12 months in this business, it's critical that you get as much right as possible. If you don't consider the variables and you kind of just skip over it, the likelihood is very high you're going to fail. 95% of agents, approximately, it's anecdotal, I don't have the data, but most agents fail out in the first year, the vast majority. And sometimes it's because it's a bad agency. Sometimes the agent, frankly, isn't cut for the business. That's true too. Some mixture of that. But there are things that if you make bad decisions or don't realize certain things, but then you come to realize them later after a lot of time, money, and is wasted, it may cause you to fail. So I want to cover this. So first of all, I started part-time. I worked maybe 20 hours a week. Knowing what I know now, I wish I would have worked more. The more time you do this business, the more time you put into it, the more you're going to get out. It's simple stuff, right? If you put the marginal minimal amount in, you're going to get the marginal minimal out, right? Duh, but it's worth repeating. And it's not necessarily just if you can, it certainly means if you sell more on the phone and talk to more people on the phone, you're likely to make more money, make more sales. But it also relates to a large part of this is training. One thing you can do if you can't be on the phone is review sales calls. This is the most powerful technique to getting better is listen to the top producers in your agency's sales calls. That's what we recommend all of our agents to do. Hearing successful people successfully sell is motivating, and it shows you it can be done, and it shows you how to deal with frustrating things that maybe you thought in your mind were impossible or a pain. And it allows you to open up and have the opportunity to get better. The other thing that's really powerful too is listening to your own sales presentations. It's kind of cringe for some of us. I know it is for me to listen to myself on the phone. I'm like, sound like this, But if you listen to your own sales call, you're going to pick up on so much things you did not do that you would have swore you did, that you will have huge opportunities to improve. So listening to your sales calls and listening to others, the more time you can do that. I wish I would have done that. I would have gotten better, a lot faster. But I didn't really listen to my sales calls that much because I don't like listening to myself, So don't let your ego get in the way like it did with me. Listen to what you're doing, compare it to the top producers, think about what you're saying and how you can get better. And I promise you, just by listening to your first call, you'll notice all sorts of things where you're like, why did I do that? And that's opportunity for growth. Okay. Number 2, I wish going back, starting part-time, I used more leads. Don't be cheap with leads. If you are in a position where you have to buy leads, get more than you need. Leads are opportunities for sales. And if you're in a lead-driven system, like most of you would be if you end up in final expense, the more you have available at your hands, the better. Okay. A sure way to die in this business, figuratively speaking, is to not have enough people to talk to. Okay. Qualified people to talk to. So don't underestimate that. Really look for the agencies, the companies that have high quality leads. You should really value that a lot more than a lot of other things, because without that, nothing happens. And looking back, I wish I just had more leads and more time because it would have made more money. Number 3, I do think now, I don't really regret this. I guess it's not really regret. I like doing it face-to-face. I like face-to-face. It's a great thing. But telesales, selling over the phone, remotely, whatever it is, there's just so many more advantages to it. Like we have agents that are making a sale every 3 hours, right? And then when they're done, they just walk out and they're home with their family. They don't have to drive home for an hour. They don't have to beat up the car. And it's a nice thing. It's convenient. You can travel and sell. Like there's so many benefits now to the way it's done remotely, the face-to-face, that I think now, I would have preferred knowing that to do telesales or remote sales, knowing the advantages and benefits. And I think the last thing here, and this is difficult to say, but I think it's applicable because it took me a long time to make this realization. I would have, in my position starting off, I wish I would have, and there really wasn't any option for this anyway, but if it was today, I would have highly considered a free lead option where I didn't have to pay for leads, as opposed to a paid lead option where I had to come out of pocket for leads. Why? And the thing I can share with you, and again, this is after recruiting agents for 10 plus years. There's something about spending your own money on leads that messes with your brain. And then having bad weeks, starting at negative 1,000 on leads and then not selling anything that week messes with you. It's very difficult to control yourself emotionally and make good decisions when you didn't do anything. You did your job buying the leads, but you didn't write anything. You didn't sell anything. And then having that decision-making process to go through. And most people, what they do is they make the wrong decisions under stress, which further contributes to their failure and flushes them out of the business. Whereas if you start off in this business, you don't have to be here forever. But if you start off in the business in a free lead program, all you have to do in a good one is sit and sell. You learn the script. You focus on the script. You focus on the sales. You focus on the repetition, the discipline, the things and the fundamentals to get good. You don't worry about where your leads are going to come from. You certainly don't worry about blowing a bunch of money and hoping it pans out. And it allows you to get good at the craft of selling. And then later on, once you have that confidence, there's an opportunity to pivot and get into the buying your own leads thing, if that's ever something you want to do. So looking back, I think, especially in my position, I don't know if I would have done it, but I think it would have been something worthy of consideration, because I know for me personally, it's like there's a risk financially, and I was already in debt, I already had financial issues. I still took the risk, but maybe it would have been a better risk if I didn't have to worry about that. So there you have it. That's how part-time worked for me. Those are the reasons, the products, the sales strategies, the lead strategies that I used to start, and what their pros and cons were. And those were some of my takeaways from the operation. My advice to you is, if you're going to do this business, do it the right way. Take your time to do due diligence, think through what I presented to you today, and understand this business is awesome. But if you make the wrong decisions, even one, it can cost you dearly, and make you jaded over the true opportunity of this business. So if you guys are watching this recorded and you want more information about what we do at the Dig Agency, go to daviddeford.com. The link's below. We recruit agents to sell final expense life insurance remotely from the comfort of their home using our free lead system. We train you one-on-one. We help you sell deals for you without taking a commission cut. We're passionate about this business, and we're always looking for people who want to commit themselves to the process and have a great opportunity to make good money. So thanks for watching. Okay.